God, thank you for this morning, today, that you have called us to yourself, God, for any students and family that do not yet know you. God, I pray that they would hear message this morning, something would prick their heart, and they would feel drawn to you in that, and they would be compelled to ask questions to people around them, God. As the mission team from New York City shares today, give them the words that you have put on their heart to share as well, God. Give them clarity of speech and the ability to show the call that you've placed on each of our lives to share the gospel in many, many ways, God. So I thank you for who you are and how you work in through us every single day. And it's in Christ's name that I pray. Amen.
Okay, well, We aren't quite ready for Broadway, as you can tell from that last video, but we were inspired, that's for sure. My name is Mrs. Talley, and I had the privilege of getting to go on our first CHA New York City mission trip. That song begins with that very familiar "Start spreading the news." And I got to thinking at the last minute, that is what we went to do. We went to spread the good news in the heart of New York City. Mostly Queens, actually, is where we were, as opposed to Manhattan. But I want to tell you just a little bit about how this started. I first became aware of this ministry opportunity through a young lady that I met from CHA. She attended, her name is Caitlin, she attended CHA through the 6th grade, and then she had to transfer out. But she was a member of my church, and years went by, the Lord kept us in touch with one another. And one day she came to me and said, "Hey, I'd love to get to come to your Sunday school class and just share about what the Lord's doing in my life. I'm living in New York City, I'm a missionary." And so I said, yeah. So she came and spoke, and then the Lord just planted like a desire in my heart at that point to say, someday maybe we would have an opportunity to take our students and be involved with what they're doing with her mission group. It's called International Project, and it was founded 30 years ago. They have full-time missionaries in 4 major cities in the world, one of them being New York City. In addition to those missionaries, though, what they do is bring in teams like ours all throughout the year. And what our group was, it was called Seed Week, because we're literally there to go and just cast the seed. And they train and mobilize students to engage particularly with unreached people groups who are living outside of their homeland. So there's so much immigration, so many people who come from other countries to New York City. It's an international mission field right here in our own country. Their theme verse is from Luke 10:2. "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." So we went to be the workers of the harvest. You're going to hear some stories this morning about how we used our training to engage with the many different kinds of people that we came in contact with. Mind you, these are just samples. We do not have time to tell you all the wonderful stories of engagement that we had while we were there. At week's end, we wrote down every person's name or description of the person, if we couldn't remember their name, that we could recall having a spiritual conversation with or praying for. And most of the time it was both, because if we had a conversation, we prayed for them. I counted close to 100 people. That's 100 people that this little group had intentional spiritual conversations with and prayed for in New York City. So they took our mission very seriously. I do have to mention Sarah Teehee was also part of our team, but she has gone on a track meet today. But the rest of us are represented here. So briefly, for me personally, this was both, I was both excited and nervous about this trip. After all, I spend most of my time around my family and you guys, not exactly a group that's unfamiliar with the gospel. So I knew, though, that I couldn't ask the students to do something that I wasn't willing to do myself. I'll admit, too, that there were opportunities that I missed because my courage failed me in the moment. But more times than not, and certainly more times than I can recall ever before, I steered the conversation toward the gospel and took the opportunity to pray with people that I'd just met. It was scary and exhilarating both. Praying for strangers, though, throughout the week became almost normal for us. And like others on the stage today, I'm continuing to look for and take advantage of the opportunities to have those conversations here in Oklahoma, in my front yard, at the store, when I just am around people anywhere. And so you're going to hear some good stories today. But because the mission isn't over, since we've come home, it really is, New York City was really just a launching pad for all of us. So I'll let you hear from the rest of the group.
Okay, I'm Mr. Dyer. I got the privilege of being one of the co-leaders on this trip. You don't need to clap, okay. So I'm just gonna do an overview of the week, what we did, what it looked like. We followed a pretty typical schedule for this international project group. So how it worked is, we get there in the morning and we'd have the morning time would be a training time where they'd train us in a various different tools of sharing the gospel. Some of them were very generic, some of them were more geared towards specific people groups that we were going to be talking to that day. So we'd go in the morning, and then in the afternoon, after we got lunch, we'd go out into whatever community was scheduled for that day, and we'd go and try to talk to people. Part of that was just making connections. Some of them got phone numbers to give to the international project staff so that they could keep those connections going, have meaningful conversations. But the goal was, like she said, to just plant seeds. So I'm going to go over an overview of the whole week. Hopefully I don't go into too much detail. But Monday we showed up and we had if you guys have ever heard of the 3 circles evangelism tool, that's what we learned Monday morning. And to get us eased into talking with people, because most of us don't go out every afternoon and talk to random people. So to get us eased into that, they actually had a scavenger hunt for us to do. And so they gave us lists of different photos and videos, and they were worth different amounts of points. The only rule was we couldn't use our phones to look anything up. So if we needed directions, we had to go talk to people. So we ended up talking to a lot of people. In the video, the one where Owen and his group are dancing was part of the scavenger hunt. And so it was a lot of fun, and it taught us how to talk to people that we'd never met before. So Tuesday, we came that morning and we did an Islam evangelism training. So that was really helpful, specifically learning tools to talk to people of different faiths. And then we got to go out to some parks and do some outreach. And they always have an off day scheduled at the middle of the week. So Wednesday, we got to go out and do some fun activities. We went to the Empire State Building, Central Park. We ate some New York pizza. We went to the Rockefeller Center and Times Square. It was a very busy day. Thursday, we showed up that morning and we learned another evangelism technique, which was just sharing stories from Scripture, summarizing them as close to the text as you can with feeling very natural. So we just went over those stories over and over again, and that was a really fun one because the gospel is, God's word is the power for salvation. And so using actual stories from Scripture to tell people about Jesus was obviously a really good technique. And so then we went out to the mall for outreach, and they're going to talk more about that one. Friday, we had a time of prayer, a time of recap of the week. That's when we listed all the names of the people we talked to. We filled up an entire whiteboard crammed with all people's names, and we got to pray for them again. And we had an outreach that afternoon in a specific neighborhood. Saturday, we got to do a ferry ride. We got to go to the Museum of Natural History, and then we got to finally see Aladdin on Broadway, which was an absolute blast. So that is a very brief overview of the whole week, and these guys are going to give you more information about what exactly we did.
My name is Maddie McConnell, and I'm finishing up my junior year this year. Going to New York City was quite a culture shock for me. I couldn't believe I was still in the U.S. This was my first time going to a big city, and it was exactly how I imagined it to be. The beeping taxis, the brown muddy snow everywhere, the scent of pot and cigarettes, the jerky subways, the numerous rats and pigeons, the breathtaking views of the towering buildings, the blinding screens of Times Square. You almost needed sunglasses, even at night, and the never-ending feeling of go, go, go. But it wasn't the city itself that made this trip memorable. That wasn't the reason we went. We went to reach people who've never heard the gospel before. On Thursday, our team split up to a shopping mall, and Mr. Dyer, Lena, and I went to find people to start conversation with. Mr. Dyer loves to go shoe shopping, so of course we went to Foot Locker. They had this machine there that scanned your foot, and it told you your exact shoe size, pressure in your foot, etc. I was looking at it when this young lady walked up and showed me how it worked. I introduced myself, and we started small talk, and I learned her name was Jessica. Lena walks up from behind me and suddenly says to Jessica, "Have you ever heard of the 3 circles before?" I kind of stood there for a minute, looking at Lena. I couldn't believe she had jumped into the gospel this quickly. I just thought to myself, I guess we're going to go ahead and do this. I pulled the 3 circles sticker out of my bag, and Lena showed Jessica the gospel. We got to share both our testimonies with her, pray with her, and we got her number. She was the sweetest lady who we could tell was genuinely curious about the gospel, and I'm so thankful we got to meet her. I was that student who thought I would never, ever in a million years go on a CHA mission trip. I had never really affiliated my school with a mission trip. My main concern was the cost of the trip, but also little things that I had just built up in my head over the years, that it wouldn't be fun and that I wouldn't get much out of it. There'd be too many rules, it wouldn't be safe, that the team wouldn't get along, but none of that happened, and it was the complete opposite. This mission trip to New York City is and forever will be one of the greatest weeks of my entire life. This team was full of all different ages, all different grades, but it was a perfect balance. We had the best interactions with each other. We laughed all the time. I got to learn so much from my team that even taught me things about myself. When we were out and about just looking around for a stranger to start talking to, I was filled with so much courage from the Holy Spirit because I knew the gospel and I believed what I was talking about, and I was doing it with people that I know have the same intentions as me. After every single conversation, I could not contain the joy that I felt, and I still remember every single person that I got to talk to and every single prayer and every single testimony. And about the trip price, at the start, it was really daunting to me that I had to raise $2,000 in just a few months by myself. It took a ton of time and a ton of hard work, but the Lord provided every single dollar needed for this trip, and even some left over. When I first heard of the CHA mission trip to New York City, way back last December, it seemed like it kind of jumped out at me, and I didn't know why then, but I for sure do now. If a mission trip seems like it's jumping out at you, do not hesitate. Go with this school, or go with your church, or go on your own. It is so worth it in obeying the Great Commission, and I promise it's not as hard as you think it is. You may even surprise yourself.
Good morning. My name is Lana Riniger, and I am a freshman. This was my first time to go to New York and to do evangelism. Going into the trip, I was pretty scared to talk to strangers about the gospel. We had 3 to 4 main days of looking for people in public places to evangelize and have conversations with. On Thursday, our 4th day, it was cold and snowing outside, so we went into a mall to talk to people. I walked around with Maddie and Mr. Dyer. It was hard to just approach people and spark a conversation about Jesus. Since Maddie does love to go dress shopping, at the end of the day, when our whole team was about to meet back up, we went into a prom store called Windsor. Mr. Dyer refused to go into a dress shop, so he said it was fine that Maddie and I went in and kept our phones with us while he sat outside. Before we went in, I told Mr. Dyer he was going to miss out on something great, on God doing something great. He laughed and said okay. Maddie and I went in and walked around, and finally a young employee asked us if she could help us. We said we were just browsing and got into a little small talk with her. Her name was Chloe, and she was a senior in high school. Maddie then asked if she had ever heard of the 3 circles before. She hadn't, and she didn't mind if we shared it with her. We pulled out a sticker and walked her through it, and then we asked if we could pray for her. After we prayed, she said that no one had ever prayed for her before. She seemed interested, so we got her number to refer her to International Project. After talking to Chloe and other people throughout the week, I learned that evangelism is so much easier than I had tricked myself into thinking. And after each person and conversation that I had so much joy and peace because this is our purpose, what God created us to do. Evangelism is something that I learned to love and something that I've been trying to implement in my daily life. Since I've been back, I've been able to talk and pray with people at stores and with my club soccer team. I encourage you to be more intentional with daily evangelism and let it change your life the way it has changed mine.
Hey guys, so I'm Alana, and I'm a senior, and this was the first mission trip I ever got to go to. Also first plane ride, but that's besides the point. So I'm talking about what we did on Friday. So we went on to this neighborhood called Astoria, and it was really cold and windy that day, so we got to go to a couple coffee shops and see if we could talk to people. So at one of these shops, Joshua and we talked to this guy, and for me, it was honestly really scary, because if you don't know me, I get really scared of talking to people, and I'm really introverted, and I like hiding. But this really taught me to stand out and just be able to talk to people. Joshua seemed fine. You were good? He seems fine. But anyhow, the guy told us that he wasn't a Christian, but his wife was, which we were like, okay. And that he believed that he could work his own way up to perfection by doing good things. So this led us to using that tool of the three circles, and got to show him what it was about. But in the end, he was pretty closed off with it, and he didn't really want to accept it that much, and ultimately told us that he was just going to be content with working his own way up. So even though he was closed off towards that and was kind of discouraging, I'm grateful for that. I was at least able to share the gospel with him, because I learned that it wasn't actually that scary to just go up to someone and ask them how their day is and how they can pray if they ever heard the gospel. Because if you think about it, all you need is just to have that willing spirit and in your heart to be able to be used by God, and let him do the rest, because that's all that really matters. So thank you.
My name is Owen Wiley, and during the trip, probably my most impactful and memorable ministry event was also during the mall day. Joshua and I were usually partnered throughout the trip for evangelizing, and on Thursday, me and Josh were at the mall, and we started off at the food courts. And the first guy we talked to, his name was Daniel. He was Colombian, and he used to be a Catholic, was now a Protestant. He was super encouraging, and he just helped us a lot. Really appreciated that conversation with him. But then the next, probably 3, 4, 5 conversations, people were either leaving or they didn't really want to talk to us, and they had a lot of mixed emotions. And we were both probably discouraged by that. We then walked around the mall for an hour trying to find the right person to talk to, because we just kept on making excuses oh, this person's doing this, we can't really talk to them, or this person's doing this. So we definitely made excuses for ourselves. Then we saw Asa and Joy, and we talked with them about our struggles. And then through some conversations and frustration, Joshua, probably out of annoyance, went to talk to the first guy he saw. And the first question he asked him was where do you like to get food? And he just looked him straight in the eye, just super monotone. And the guy was kind of startled and taken aback. And he just pointed to the food course that was just downstairs. And the guy was kind of confused. And then Joshua just asked about his family and his friends. And it was just, the guy was very startled. Then me and Joy and Acer joined the conversation to help Joshua out. And the guy's name was Wazif, and his friend, Wazif's friend, joined the conversation, and his name was T. They were freshmen in college, and they're both Muslims. We then talked to them about Christianity and Islam, and they actually were practicing Ramadan at the time, which means they literally weren't eating food or water all day till sundown, I think. But we were talking to them about Christianity and Islam, and our main doctrinal issue that we were talking about was the Trinity. They didn't understand how God can be 3 in 1, and we spent a lot of time on this. We were also talking about the prophets, but they were very knowledgeable, and I was kind of surprised by that. And we just explained the Trinity to them, and they still didn't really get it, but we could tell that they were contemplating it. They also talked about how they struggle with Islam because it's a work-based religion. And we talked about how to get through that and what the difference is between Christianity and Islam. And then I got Wazif's number, and we continued to text about Christianity. And I do think the seed was planted with him through our conversations. But overall, the trip was amazing. But I wish I could have done more, obviously, and I wish I could have talked to more people. But I definitely could see God working during the trip. And it was so easy to apply to my life back in Oklahoma. I've already been able to evangelize and pray with others while I'm here. But I think overall, the trip expanded my viewpoint of what missions should look like. And I think that missions and evangelizing is so important. And I do not think we do it enough. But it was really easy for me to apply to my life, which I thought it wouldn't be possible. And I'm glad that I was able to apply to my life and also have this trip with the people that I went with. So thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. My name's Kaylee, and I'm a sophomore. Today, I wanted to share with y'all my biggest takeaway that I had from this trip, which was really the sentiment that the worst thing that someone can say to you is no when you're sharing the gospel with them. I have a story that kind of goes along with this, which was Actually, most people are talking about the day we were at the mall. This one was also at the mall. It was me and my group, which was me, Sarah, and Elena. We're walking around the mall food court, and we were just trying to find someone to talk to, so we approached this group of teenage girls. They looked at us kind of like we were crazy. We started trying to have a conversation with them, and ultimately we asked if we could pray for them. They looked at us and said no. It was that simple, and really, I didn't see that coming. And part of me, yes, was a little disappointed, but ultimately, I wasn't embarrassed that I tried. And I think so often we all think, why would I even try to share this message whenever, they're just gonna think I'm crazy, they're gonna think I'm, this weirdo. But does it really matter? If the worst case of talking to someone about Jesus is them saying no, why would you not do it? I would say, me as someone who's very introverted, that's my biggest fear, is that everyone's gonna think I'm super weird, they're not gonna like me. But it doesn't matter if we're doing what God has called us to do. Ultimately, we build up these worst possibility cases in our heads. But if the worst case scenario is that they say no to you, does it matter? And who's to say we didn't even plant a seed in those girls that day? We don't know. We'll never know. I ultimately like to believe that, someone else in their life could show them the gospel, but I'll never know that. And I'm not going to be discouraged by that interaction. I'm going to remember that God was on my side that day, and he was there. Ultimately, if you remember nothing from what I just told you, I just want you to remember that the worst thing that someone can say is no, so why not share the gospel with them? Okay, thank you.
All right. Hi, guys. I'm Acer Carpenter. It was the fourth day of the trip, if you don't count the travel day. The Thursday, we went to the Queen Center Mall, and there, Joy, Washa, and I met a Hindu man named Sangeet. He was a really kind person, and he was working at a little VR stand. And our interaction started off pretty simple, hi, what's it like working at the VR stand? But then it eventually turned into a very respectful conversation about faith. We shared parts of Christianity with him, and in return, he shared parts of Hinduism with us. In my opinion, it was one of those conversations that you could see a mutual respect, and it was a good conversation. In our training, we would call him a yellow light, which is someone who's receptive and willing to listen and to learn. They've not fully received it. They're not fully receptive. They're not yeah, I'm gonna do this, but they're not totally no, get out of my face. We were able to get about halfway through the 3 circles method, just the right amount. We got enough of it. We were able to explain what we believed, and we shared parts of our testimony, and along the way, we talked about the similarities and differences between Christianity and Hinduism. One similarity we discussed is that in Hinduism, people are believed to have a little part, or a reflection of the main God, which is kind of like their soul, pretty much their spirit. And we connected that to our belief with how we're all made in the image of God and reflect him in some way. That idea really helped us to create a bridge in the conversation. Sangeet mentioned that he had an open mind and was willing to learn from other religions. And he also told us that he had a Christian friend in India, which was very encouraging to hear. Both Joy and I really hoped that the conversation that planted a seed and that his friend would be able to continue and water that seed moving forward. Overall, the trip was amazing, and y'all should go on mission trips because they're so worth it. They're so worth the experience you get, the friendships you make, and just seeing other places and hearing other people. It is all worth it, and I would encourage all of y'all to go.
Hi guys, my name is Joy Washa, and I'm a senior this year. So the same day that I was partnered with Acer in the mall, that morning we had learned some tools. One tool we had learned was how to share our short 15 to 30 second testimony, where there was a time in my life when, and you say two things before you met Jesus, then I met Christ, and now he's changed me to be like this. Do you have a story like that? And then we practiced how to share Bible stories, like parables that Jesus would say. And so at the mall, I think my favorite story was we were walking through the food court, and we were about to leave, and we looked at each other, and we're like, one more. So we walked over, and there was this high school boy, and his name was Jeremy. And we kind of started off just asking him questions. Are you from around here? What's it like? And then I was like, hey, or I don't remember how I got into it, but I shared kind of like my 15-second testimony. I said, do you have a story like that? And he was like, yeah, I grew up in the church, I knew about God, but I kind of fell away from that. And that reminded us of like the prodigal son story. And so we said, can we share this story with you? Jesus once told his followers a story very similar to that. He was like, yeah, sure. So we just went through the prodigal son, and we kind of related it to the time we put our trust in Jesus. So we were like, would that be something you would like to do today? And he was like, okay, sure. And so he prayed after us, he repeated after us, and he trusted in Jesus, which was super duper cool. And then, so we got to rejoice over him. We prayed for him again. We got his number to contact him for like discipleship with International Project. And then he was like, yeah, I have a friend who just trusted in Jesus, and I didn't really know what it was about, but he's been trying to get me to read the Bible with him. So we're like, oh, you should contact him. And he seemed like happy, and as we were leaving, he was on the phone with someone. He was like, I'm going to contact him right now. So that was super cool. And then another fun story was at the mall, I was going to the in the bathroom, there were these girls, and they were talking really loudly, and they were like yelling about how they had shoplifted, and like they almost got caught at one store, and then they went to another store and almost got caught. And it's actually a funny story. And they were like yelling, like everybody could hear them. And I had this thought, I was like, what if I like shared with them, But I was really scared. I didn't think they would be receptive at all. But somehow I managed, I just started asking them questions, and they were immediately like lit up. They're like, oh yeah. And we just started talking and having a fun, energetic conversation. And I pulled out my phone. It has 3 circles. And I was like, have you guys ever seen this before? They're like, no, tell me. And so I got to start going through it, and they cut me off, which was great. And they had so many questions. They were like, is Mary God? I was like, no. And then they started talking about like, oh man, I'm going to reincarnate into a fish. Like, no way. And it was so fun. And so we had so many questions. And one girl, she was like, I'm a Muslim, but I never assured of my salvation, and I really want to know more about Jesus. And so they were definitely like really open, but they ended up like having to leave. And so I was like, hey, would you guys want to meet back here tomorrow and get lunch, and we can just read the words of Jesus for ourselves and get to learn some more about it? And they're like, yeah. So we exchanged contacts, and unfortunately this happens a lot. They ended up ghosting me, so I never met back up with them. But that didn't really change anything about me, and that was something that was helpful in like learning just like the worst that can happen. Like, it's in God's hands, and that was a seed planted. And so I'm really excited that like God's going to keep working in their lives, and I'm still praying for them. But overall, I think this trip was a really awesome way for me to just especially learn evangelism with other people groups like Muslims and Hindus that I get really scared around, and it was a really amazing trip. So thank you.
Well, just to wrap things up, listen, if you want to learn how to share your faith better, we would encourage you to pray about going to New York City with us next year. But wait, you don't have to wait until New York City comes around next year, because this group of people behind me, they want to share with you what they learned. And so we have an opportunity for you. If you want to come and just learn how to use some of the tools that they were speaking about, because we didn't have time to share those this morning, we're going to offer pizza lunch in 109 on Thursday. Okay, we'll buy your lunch if you say, I want to come, teach me how to use some of these things. And these people behind me, they're going to help you. You can sign up in the secondary office today or tomorrow. Outside of Mr. Dyer's room, he's going to put up a sign-up sheet. I'm going to have one outside of my room. So every floor, there's going to be a sign-up sheet. So if the Lord is kind of stirring you a little bit right now, then just go put your name on it, come have lunch with us, learn how to use this tool, and then we'll see what the Lord does with that. So we don't want to keep this to ourselves, and we don't want to have to wait another year before we can take you with us to New York City. So with that, I hope that the Lord has encouraged you today that anybody can do this. We have some good news worth sharing, and so I hope you'll go away encouraged today. Talk to us, ask us questions about it. We'd love to tell you more. We couldn't possibly fit it all in this morning. With that, we're going to go ahead and close, and you are dismissed.